Proprietress inquires. Will that be all? The proprietress asks. Light the torch. It'll be much easier to explore now with your surroundings better illuminated. Though the torch lights your immediate surroundings, you still cannot peer far into the distance. Upon closer examination of the door, you spot a cavity that looks like some sort of sphere should go there. You put the magic sphere into the cavity, and the door opens. Claret trail leads you deeper into the... What horrors transpire here? You make to open. The next instant, something leaps at you out from the darkness. Monster defeated, you turn toward the treasure chest and see those Ivory Order jerks rooting through it, tugging the spoils from the chest, knowing you couldn't stop. Nice of them to... For some reason, Melanie picks up the ragged doll. Your shoulders slump. All that effort. You find nothing else even close to treasure. Hopes leave now would be the fastest way up. Left the western cave. This is all Cypri's eye. Without breaking his gaze away from the doll, he begins to. Since then, Cypri has treasured this doll as he treasured. Cypri turns to Melanie. So you reclaimed the treasure by complete accident. What do you know about the dragon? Cypri gestures as if to say, according to Cypri, you might be able to learn. Upon hearing that, you'll need this, he says, and holds out something for you. You won't make it through the bewildering wood without your sights set on the distant Unionville. You resolve to navigate through the bewildering wood. You are surprised to find a merchant selling goods in a place like this. There is nothing you need to buy, so you pass by without paying it any mind. Lying in the grass, you find an old telescope. You figure a look at the path ahead can't hurt. All you know is there's something up ahead. You should be able to tell. Drawing upon your courage, you toss the janky telescope aside. You charge ahead with your... It falls over in its shock, then scrambles up and flees in terror, leaving behind some coins. You pick up a scrap of paper. You stash the scrap of paper in your pack and resolve to keep an eye out for the treasure on your travels. A thick fog impedes your vision. You surmise this is in no small part why they call it the Bewildering Wood. You hear a beautiful melody flowing from the forest depth. Attributing it to your imagination, you decide to ignore it. A short moment later, the melody stops. A message is written on the sign. Seek out the four stela hidden deep in these woods. Trees bearing very solid-looking nuts whip to and fro in the force of the gale. This nuts fly off the trees and smack you and your friends right on the head. Everyone's faces screw up in agony. You have found the southern stela. You smack it and hear a sound off to the west. You'd best head that way next. You have found the northern stela. It doesn't look particularly special. You resolve to touch it anyhow. You have found the Eastern Stela. You see the words Melody of Fortune chiseled into the corner. You've already investigated this Stela. The words Melody of Fortune are rather conspicuously chiseled into the corner. You have found the Western Stela, but you have found all 4 of the Stela in the Bewildering Wood. On a perhaps related note, you hear a sound emanating from the east. You hold the woodland flute you received from the good doot-doot-doot-doodly-doot-doot-doot-doo. You blow a handful of pleasant enough notes into the... You soon become aware of accompanying percussion, which reveals itself to... A young woman appears before... A sheer coincidence, the flute on which you play... But, she continues, extending her hand, you hand over the flute, firmly restating that she may... Ridis plucks the woodland flute out of your hands with glee, and begins playing it as she skips away. "It's that-a-way," Ridis says gleefully, pointing past the Stela before you. Welcome. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm quite busy for the rest of the day, so you'll have to wait till tomorrow to leave the forest, she says, and makes her way home. You happen upon a man greedily guzzling well water. Could it truly be that much better than ordinary water? It turns out this inn is simply a place where the poor lost souls trapped in the bewildering... Melanie Mar sits, eyes... He lets out a self-satisfied burp that sends... The sun sinks low, and the day draws to a close. A scream pierces. The others follow suit, and before long you've burst... Ridis's house is ablaze, a nearby villager screams. "My mother is still inside," Ridis shrieks, darting past you to fetch water from the well south of the village. Ridis is gathering water in an attempt to fight the blaze. You toss a nearby bucket into the well and haul it up by the rope. Rather, you attempt to, but thanks to Mar robbing you of a meal, your strength fails you. Melanie tosses a nearby bucket into the well and hauls it up by the rope, but she hasn't the strength to raise. She releases the rope and examines her raw, reddened hands. None can say she did not try. Mar's eyes light up. He scrambles over the edge of the well and sucks the well dry in an instant. He pokes at his swollen belly and gestures toward Ridis's house, as if to say, "Get me back there, quick." Mar douses the house with the water he sucked up from the well. The fire is reduced to mere embers, and all is well. Or so you think. Something darts out from behind the house and attacks. And fight. The fiery beast dispatched, you return to putting out the last of the blaze with Ridus's mother. Now, what would bring a creature of fire to a place like this, you wonder? Light breaks on a new day, and the commotion of the fire feels but a nightmare. You lead your party to Ridus's house to ask for safe passage out of the... He digs and digs, but no... Melanie beseeches you, but well digging was forbidden by our ancestors long ago. How is that the best lie you can come up with? The man turns towards you both, oblivious to the squabble playing out before him. Do you have any salve? You say you will give it to him, but you have none to give. Make way to the apothecary and buy some, if you wish to help him. How may I help you? The proprietress inquires. Will that be all? The proprietress asks. You hand the man some salve. The instant he applies it to his hands, he resumes his furious digging. Not long after that, water erupts from the ground with a force unlike... He sidles up to the jet of water and begins drinking from it as one... The man hands you mysterious card 4 to show his appreciation for the salve. Though spared from complete collapse, Ridus's home has been thoroughly scorched. Why do you want to venture out? We are in search of the draft. Sounds like a real risk. At last, Ridus is ready to depart for the edge of the bewildering wood. Upon seeing that Ridus is with you, he steps aside and lets you through. The eastern portion of the woods certainly does not want for thick, soupy fog. turn away, ready to... Riddis appears to be familiar. Oh dear. I'll thank you kindly to pay by the end of the month. Hee hee. Riddis lets out a She pulls the woodland flute from her cloak and begins softly playing. Riddis's ear-splitting performance, shall we say, draws monsters out from behind the trees. Within moments, they are nearly upon you. That's odd. I must have made a mistake, Riddis says, burying her face in her old book once more. She opens the book to a particular page. No matter how many times you finally see that so long... Melanie quietly opines that while Riddis is many things, bright is not one of them. One of the nuts flies off a branch. Poor Mar clutches the spot, eyes tearing up from the blow. As she does, a hidden path out of the bewildering wood comes into view. At last, you are free. You've certainly kept your I was hoping I could join you on your quest to defeat the dragon. Riddis suddenly. She takes out her old book and thrusts another page in your face. Have you no heart? Are you just going... Melanie calmly reminds your well-reasoned argument of no thwarted. You nod your head in resignation and welcome Riddis to the party. see something approaching from up ahead. A monster, Melanie shouts, readying for battle. Mr. Flobby, get back here. It's dangerous out there. A young girl. What a weird place, remarks. We aren't staying a moment longer than necessary, says an unsettled Melanie, her distaste for monsters plain on her face. Traveler, down here, at thy feet. You look down to see a small clump of... The clump of fur speaks. I am Lappy, and I should like to... Lappy the furball looks at you with amiable expectations. Why do you want to join us? You... No. Thoroughly rejected by Melanie, Lappy bursts. You tell Melanie to be nice. However, Lappy leaps up and hugs her in his excitement, exclaiming, "Thou hast made me so happy." Though she thought all monsters... Finally, a friend. You bow. He laughs, then shamelessly praises his own village as after explaining that you must be tired. Headman says, then claps his hands twice to summon a stewardess. Extravagant dish. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve. There. We'll eat soon. The doors fly open in the next instant, and a girl runs in. With tears in her eyes, she tells you that the headman's eyes go wide in surprise. You are starving, but it doesn't look like you'll be able to partake of... We will find your slime. And then Melanie reminds you that you are here. What's the difference? Brave heroes, the headman interjects. It appears the story... You need to hear the whole story from the young girl. The girl sobs, wailing about the missing Mr. Flobby. Melanie placed the girl, then hands something to Melanie. She asks Melanie to wipe Regardless, looking aimlessly outside the village would be a waste of time. You decide to collect more information in the village. She says she claims they... Did that man take Mr. Flobby? You resolve to leave the village in search of the pair. Though a torch is not strictly necessary, it would certainly help you find your way through the dimly lit shrine. Your footing is obscured in the dimness of the shrine. You go forth slowly but steadily. Taking it you take a good look at the floor and see it lined in trails of viscous liquid. No doubt a slime or 200 have passed through here. It looks like poor Mr. Flobby is being held captive by the Mystery Man. You speak as if I kidnapped him, he remarks curt. When your eyes finally adjust, Melanie's mouth falls open. It seems the man has noticed Melanie as well. Yet, according to the man, the man's revelation makes you realize that you know almost nothing. You ask Melanie about her hometown. With forbidden magic, our clan has ensured the dragon, he begins, when Melanie cuts in. She rattles on about the man, telling you that he is Vince, a lunatic obsessed with the dragon. Vince resentful. You ran enraged. You have so many questions, but realize that the most pressing. Careful, he won't go down easy. During the fight, Vince asks, The headman may look like a nice old man, but he keeps those little monsters around too. Winifred, Hedwyn, and Berwyn of the Ivory Order appear. The three brush you aside, fixing their attention on Vince. The Ivory Order and that false justice they serve are the true evil here, he retaliates, fighting back. Seeing the two parties occupied with each other, you realize this is your chance to grab Mr. Flobby. Perhaps wary of humans, Mr. Flobby dashes out when you draw near. When you reach out to grab Mr. Flobby, he's lower Mr. Flobby's stamina to calm him down. Exhausted from the fight, the raging Mr. Flobby finds something to help return Mr. Flobby to normal. You wipe Mr. Flobby's mouth with the handkerchief you received. Then you hear a quiet voice speak. "That's not my mouth," Mr. Flobby murmurs bashfully. It looks like the girl's familiar scent on the handkerchief returned him to normal. Having regained his senses, Mr. Flobby, you place the increasingly sticky handkerchief in your bag. Lappy approaches and tells you that Mr. Flobby has returned. The girl is ecstatic. "I'm happy for you, Melanie." The girl bows her head. Mr. Flobby looks as slimy. "The headman wants us to bring Mr. Flobby to him. Would you mind?" "Of course not, but bring him back soon," she answers with a bright smile. I am so happy to see you safe and sound. You explain everything that happened, and he expresses his relief that the order. He then thanks you for your hard work and instructs his stewardess to prepare dinner for your party. You can feel your collective mouths watering at the sight of the lavish meal before you. You, Mar, and Ridis immediately dig in. You aren't sure where you find a moment to please eat to your heart's content, the headman insists. Once your belly is full, you realize that room for dessert, the headman asks, offering you a plate of slimy jelly. You feel your stomach churning at the very sight of it. The color strikes you as familiar, and the stickiness sends a shiver down your spine. Is this Mr. Flobby? You ask the headman, your voice trembling. The headman looks at you with a plain expression, one that holds no malice. This dish is a masterpiece, and I have you brave heroes to thank for it. Had you not brought that slime back, we would not be able to enjoy this exquisite dessert. He points at Mar and asks, would you consider leaving that creature? Never, you refuse flatly, not bothering to hide your discomfort. Think about it, he entreats. You grab the headman by his lapels, hands trembling in fury. You pummel the headman with all your might. Curled up on the ground, the headman groans in pain, but insists. You hug Mar. Mar looks at you with his round eyes and mews. You meet eyes with the rest of your party and reach a tacit agreement. Together, you all stand and leave. As you are about to leave the headman's house, though, the old man suddenly charges at you from behind. But Mar, the keener of you two, is quick. With a crash. Mar and from the headman's hand falls a small blade. It clatters to the ground, covered in blood. You take the injured Mar to an inn where you can watch over him. You gaze at despite the shallow wound, no amount of. I heard that as he reaches Mar's bedside, this is what-you-call-it extract. He shouts. He explains that it is a Lappy's eyes widen in realization. He then puts the what-you-call-it extract into a bottle and hands it to you. He tells you to give the extract to the famous. Realizing that you are at fault for this, you don't hesitate. But this is strange. The extract comes from a monster, so it should have no effect on one, Lappy remarks with a curious tilt of his head. Look, you two, it's the sea, Ridis exclaimed. You, on the other hand, trudge along as far, feeling something at your feet. You glance. It appears you've stepped on a monster's cape, making it very upset. It attacks you in fury. She narrows her. Your ears perk up at the word reward, and you immediately agree to help expose the dirty thief. You hear a roar. Rumor in the village has it that it might be the dragon. You approach a woman sneaking around in a corner of town. Hearing your voice, my poor little boy is bedridden, she says tearfully. He needs medicine. No matter the reason, theft is wrong. You ignore her excuses and take the medicine from her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, You feel bad for her and her child, but know you must return the medicine to its rightful owner. Now to receive your reward. The woman thanks you for returning the medicine and bestows you with a reward. Unsure if you made the right choice, you return to your journey with a heavy heart. You open the door without knocking. A muscular man emerges from the back. You politely ask if he is the nutritionist. He says he has been studying diet. He stares at opens the bottle and laps at the liquid. He needs a special fish to make the necessary. When he explains that you can catch one in the surrounding sea, it sounds like his son is fishing on the wharf. You decide to go find him. You see a young man with his line in the water. He turns around and flexes, shouting out suddenly, "Power is power." He asks if you have business with him. Though you are pretty sure of the answer, you introduce yourself. You know Oreo needs a spry fish to make that supplement. Hearing the despair in your voice, Bruno, he tells you that you thank him for the information. Just as you are, is it a reward you're after? You are about to ask. But Melanie smacks you on the head before you can voice it and allows him to come along. What will you ask Bruno? You ask Bruno about his. Bruno replies that apparently he only carries around a sword to look like an adventurer. Curious about his attire, he confessed that he once wished for armor. In that moment, the words "birds of a feather flock together" run through your mind, but you quickly chase them away. afraid of what that means for you. A rough-tempered piscator stands there, having just returned from fishing. Mar's fate rests upon this man's hall. Terrible, he says, showing you the few fish he's caught. Inside, you see a spry. You ask him if you can have the spry fish, but he said, when you ask how much it will cost, you're heartless. Just then, he challenges the man. This one's all yours. Then let the carnival of your puny body is no match for mine, the piscator shouts back, throwing a punch. A battle of... His victory sealed, Bruno strikes a glorious pose and shouts, "Witness the power of power!" Defeated, the piscator hands over the spry fish to Bruno. Bruno extends a hand. An unspoken friendship begins to form between the two. Or at least, you hope that's what the prolonged silence between them means. With the spry fish in hand, you head back towards Oreo's clinic. Bruno looks at your group sadly, reluctant for this little adventure to end. You hand the fish to... "Give me a moment," he says, then takes the fish and heads into the back. "It's ready," he says, emerging from his room and handing you a bottle. You hope this will get Mar back on his feet. You face Bruno and say, "Take care," but Oreo squats at hyper speed. "I want to show this power. You have much to learn, my son." Or only the sound of their labored. You can only look on in stunned silence at the enigmatic display. Bruno falls to his knee. You realize that these two have a very special way of talking that no one else can understand. Hearing yet another roar in the distance, you realize you need to get the supplement to Mar so you can investigate the sound together.